Have you ever wanted to master the ATP, modern, or next-gen two-handed backhand? Had some difficulty with that? I'm going to share with you my 3 favorite ATP backhand drills that I use with my players, and I think you're going to love it. So we got the ATP backhand, the modern backhand, the next-gen backhand. Let's dive in and I'll show you my 3 favorite drills and we'll master all of these. All right, so I'm here with my buddy Micah. Micah, come here. And Micah's got you got to look at the camera, buddy. Come over here. Come over here. All right, so I'm here with my buddy Micah. He's a student of mine, and he's gonna help you with the two-handed backhand. I have a one-handed backhand. We're gonna take you through some two-handed backhand exercises. This is exercise number 1. And basically, with the modern ATP next-gen two-handed backhand, I mean, what's the difference? For me, modern means that the wrists are moving, that it may not be actual contraction of the wrist musculature. That's a big debate in biomechanics, but we're gonna get the wrist moving. There's gonna be a lag, and there's gonna be an acceleration of the racket head. And so there has to be play in the racket head. For me, a more traditional style two-hander is like Connors, you know, like back in the day, players used to keep their wrist locked. So I'm gonna encourage Micah here to try, I gotta figure out a way to get him to use his wrist. So the first exercise I like to do is to teach him how to relax his wrist and make like a little circle with the wrist. So I want you to work on that first. Let's try it. So I want you to think about, we'll set up a little bit over here. So I want you to think about the wrist. You take the racket back. You're not making a circle like this. That's a big mistake. You're gonna take the racket back and you're gonna think about making a little C shape or a little circle here. And in the beginning, when you're learning, you're doing it with your wrists. You're kind of doing it with the muscles of the shoulder and the elbow and the wrist. You're making that circle, but as you get more advanced, it most likely becomes more of a passive movement of the wrist to get that lag. And you know what a lot of times on YouTube we call lag and snap. I don't really like the word snap so much, but I do like the idea of getting lag and then letting the racket head passively accelerate through. So there may be some wrist movement there, but it's probably most likely passive. And the key is when you're doing a drill like this is you're actually going to start to do a little more active circles, and that's going to help loosen things up. So that's my first exercise that I like, and I'm going to show you a few variations within this exercise. You want to try it? Show me a couple here. All right, you got to come here. Ready? Let's see it. Okay, all right, we took a little different angle here so you can see this C shape or this little circle. We'll call this like little circles. And the idea is we're trying to get lag in the racket. And like I'm gonna show you some of my favorite ways to do this within this type of exercise. So you need a partner or a ball machine or someone to just toss, and you try to make little circles with your wrist, and then you try to get some topspin on the ball and see if you can get this whippiness in the racket head. You know, and you can't be stiff. You have to be kind of loose with your wrists. Here we go. Nice, not bad. Now remember, Micah's not a pro. He's not on the pro tour. He's not a top college player. He's one of my local students here. He's a good high school player. So he's learning this modern backhand just like any of you guys out there. Nice, nice. So the idea is you take it back in a straight line. A lot of people make the mistake, they say, oh, you want me to make a circle? And then they go like circle, like that. You don't make a big circle on the backhand. Very rarely do players do that, top players. You're gonna take the racket back more or less in a straight line, racket head above the hands, and then here's where the magic's gonna happen. You're gonna start to make little C shapes here, little circles or C shapes here, and you just circle it up right in here. And that's going to help kind of loosen up the joints here and kind of get the racket head lagging and moving, and that's what you want. You don't want to be stiff. So all of the kids that I work with a lot of juniors, adults too. If they have a two-hander, a lot of adults have a one-hander, but let's say you have a two-hander, most people do it wrong. They keep the wrists are locked, the elbows are locked, everything's locked. You know, like a Cam Norrie backhand, but you don't want to hit backhand like Cam Norrie. You want to hit the backhand like Djokovic or Murray or Alcaraz, or so many good guys like Sinner or Rude, So you try to circle it up, and then you do some little shadows. Nice. Now here's something cool. You try to time that circle with the hip rotation and the leg drive. So the legs are running the show, the legs drive the hips in the kinetic chain, and then what you try to do is you try to link this little circle. This is really big. You try to link this little circle, and as you're coming around the circle, you fire your hips, and that's going to help create the force that pushes the wrist and the racket into lag. And the key is you have to be relaxed as you're coming down around that circle. You have to be relaxed, and you have to time exactly as you're coming around here the hip movement. And if you can do that, you can start to get a little more of a passive lag from the hips, from the legs and the hips, rather than just an active lag that you're kind of simulating with your wrist in the beginning when you're still learning. Okay, so you want to try to get in here. This whole thing already feels tight to me. This is one of the things you can check. Is that these are like this has to be real. It's still too tight, Micah. Even from the shoulders, everything has to be loose. Okay, you know what I do with this? I'll give you guys pro tip number one. I got a great drill for this. You kind of bounce a basketball. Like you kind of dribble. It's like the dribble drill. Can you come a little closer? Yeah. So you kind of go like, try to be here, bang. This is really good drill for working on lag and just getting all this musculature more relaxed. Boom, 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 bang. Rather than everything tight like a robot. So many robot two-handers. Bounce, dribble, 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 maybe circle, dribble, dribble, circle. Boom, boom, bang. You're bouncing the basketball along here. Try that. Right, and then like you can go like 1, 2, bang. 1, 2, 3, bang. It's a really good way to kind of loosen up all the musculature in the joints here. This is a really common problem. Everyone's locked like a robot. What else can I tell you here? Another cool thing, like let's say you're trying to get that next gen. Well, let's leave next gen for a little bit later in discussion. Let's say you're trying to get that straight arm, which I've been making a lot of videos about, which is a debate whether you should get the straight arm or should not get the straight arm. But let's say you're trying to get the straight arm. So as you're doing this bouncy thing, you try to keep the hands away. You see what I'm doing here? Bounce, bounce. And look how I'm keeping my hands away from my core, from my center. See my hands away? You paying attention? Hands away, bounce, bounce, hips. The key is to synchronize the hips with the looseness here and the little circle movement here. And it's active when you're learning, but as you get better at this and you get stronger and you build racket speed, this becomes more like a passive lag that all the pros have. But you have to stay relaxed. If you're tight, you won't get the lag. So these are some ideas and like pro tips within this sort of exercise framework. You need someone to toss you the balls, and you need to either maybe have a ball machine or a partner or a coach or a friend, someone to give you the balls. And then you can try to work on getting this relaxation. But in my experience, this is like the hardest thing for most people. They're so locked and they can't unlock their arms. You have shoulder joint, elbow joints, wrist joints, everything has to be unlocked. And then you have to fire your hips in just the right sequence. This is not easy to get that ATP backhand. Ready? Did you hear what I said about keeping the hands away? If you're trying to get that straight arm thing, you bounce, 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 and keep the hands away the whole time. Look how I'm forcing my hands away. And you don't let the hands come to the inside. Right, but you did your hands away and everything got tight. that's where the rubber meets the road, because people want that straight arm. They're like, I get my arm straight. I get my arm straight, I get everything out, and now look, everything's locked and they don't get any lag. So it's really hard to get the straight arms and the hands away, and also get good lag, because when people think straight, what do? They tighten up everything. So the key is to be out here, bouncing along, like doing that drill, bounce, 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 pa-pa. Ready. Nice. You can practice it, you can shadow it. That's a good exercise, you know, within this larger framework. Go ahead, try to shadow, shadow, shadow. Yeah, see how that stays rhythm? Finish the swing, you know. Bounce that weight along. Good. Taking it back. You play basketball, right? Yeah. Or you know, that's one option. You're just trying to, I can't believe the tension in your arms. The other thing is, like I said, you can just work circles. You can go back, little circle, back, little circle. You can do dribble, dribble, dribble. You got to do something to get this kind of stuff happening rather than robot backhand. Ready? Too tight. Loosen it, man. That was better. Nice. Shadow, shadow, shadow. You don't want a lot of, you don't want a big flat sound. You don't want a lot of power, actually. You'd like to scrape the ball. Come a little closer. That will transition well. This will segue well into the next exercise that I'm going to show you, which is about topspin, because I don't think you can build this ATP NextGen modern two-hander without topspin. So we'll talk about that in the next exercise, but you need topspin, and so you should be trying to scrape the ball here. You should be trying to do dribble, 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 or straight line, circle, and then brush. You should be brushing up. You should be working on getting under the ball and scraping up on the back of the ball. You don't want too much power. You want more spin. That's going to force the racket to go down in the lag phase. The racket's going to go, basically, sometimes it's called the flip. The racket's going to flip down if you're working on topspin. Nice. That was a good one, man. Nice, nice. You try to get looser? Really? Yes. All right, good job. So I did a couple of videos recently with all of the theory and sort of the biomechanics and some of the physics and anatomy and physiology. So this video, I just want to go into like practical stuff, like what do I do as a coach? What do I do with players? How do you fix it? What can you do at home to actually get this modern two-hander going, which is really difficult. So this is very practical drill-based video. We were talking about the ATP and the NextGen. So what's the difference between ATP and NextGen? In my view, the main difference is what you see with the most modern ATP two-handed backhands is this is making a circle, and sometimes the circle sort of transgresses or trespasses or crosses the 6 p.m. line, or gets close to the 6 p.m. line with the racket, the lag of the racket, the take back here. It's more like a circle. If you know the YouTuber Kevin Garlington, he's got a good channel, he's a good coach. And he has a funny saying that sticks in my mind. He says this is stirring the soup. And I think that's actually a very good visual. It's kind of funny, but he calls this stirring the soup, and I can't get that out of my mind. I think it's very good. A good coaching phrase, stirring the soup, right? So to me, the stirring the soup is the ATP two-hander. Like the modern two-hander, there's like, you know, it's more compact, but there's lag, but the movement is more around towards 6 o'clock area, more or less. And the women are like, you know, the WTA backhand's like way beyond 6 o'clock, which I don't like. I'm not a big fan of that. And I think women can generally do it better. But that's another discussion. What's the next gen backhand? The next gen for me is like Alcaraz, Rublev, Berrettini, good one, good example. Sinner's more of the first style. I said Sinner's Djokovic. Djokovic varies it sometimes. Sinner has more of that stirring the soup action. Djokovic. A lot of times Djokovic will have this stirring the soup kind of deal here. And then when the ball comes fast, you have to be careful what kind of clip you look at or when you're watching him. If the ball comes fast, he'll go into more of a next-gen, ultra compact backhand. Kyrgios is a good example, super next-gen. Who's another good example that I'm thinking of off the top of my head? Rude, I would say, is more of a Djokovic style, sort of stirring the soup. And so what's the next gen? Next gen, Dr. Brian Gordon calls it a hook loop. So I like that term. It's like a loop, but it just hooks down and it stays like around 5 o'clock. So that's what I would think about for when people say, what's ATP, what's next gen? Think about the hook loop and you're going to be ultra compact, like a Kyrgios, right? So you're going to go into here, and instead of stirring the soup and getting like this extra play, this extra range back here, this extra pathway of the racket, you're going to be in here, and you're literally just going to go up and hook. You're going to go like kind of like a circle and then a hook loop down. You're going to hook down, and as you're hooking down, you're going to fire your hips, and that's going to create the lag. Want to try that? I don't know if you can do that because it's a bit more difficult. You just go, you stay out at 5 o'clock here, or 7 o'clock, you know, however, maybe 5 o'clock, depending on your clock face, 7 o'clock, and you just hook down and through. You just go down. Right. That was good. That was good. That was good. He did it that time. He's not going to be able to do it with the ball. But this is probably the hardest thing to get. I don't know if you don't necessarily need to do that. Like if you're just a recreational player or even a really good players, think about like Zverev. Like Zverev comes around and he's got an awesome backhand. So like the key is if you have this ATP modern, that's pretty good, you know, the stirring the soup. But when the ball comes fast, then you can make it a little more compact, like with a return of serve or someone hits a power shot, you can do more of that hook loop, you know. So I think there's room for both, and there's a debate whether, you know, the hook loop, the next gen style is actually better or if it's an evolution or not. I mean, I'll leave that still up for debate, but either way, I think if you're building a backhand, when I have my top juniors that I'm training, I want them to have at least the ATP backhand. You know, I don't want them to have a WTA backhand. I want an ATP backhand or next gen. If they can do next gen, you know, I defer to them. I try to work with the players, see what they can do. You know, one of the problems with the next gen is, what do you think? It's probably hard to generate power here because you have a ultra compact swing where you just hook loop. You're just going back and like hooking down. You have to be very explosive in the musculature, a lot of fast twitch to get that racket moving to generate power, right? It's a little easier to generate fluid power with that ATP stirring the soup type thing, you know? I love that saying, stir the soup. That's kind of what it looks like. Try to do the hook loop. Show me a stir the soup. Right. And then show me a hook loop. Yeah, you just go, yeah, that's kind of the difference. And what I notice, like especially with Djokovic, for example, is he'll do both. He'll have like, when he wants more power, he'll reach back a little more. Sinner sometimes too will reach back a little more. And you'll notice, like depending on which shot of backhand you see, depending on the tactical intention, you'll see some of these guys will make a hook loop and to save time and to just feed off the pace of their opponent. And it's kind of a modification of the normal ATP backhand. And then there's some players like Kyrgios is the guy on the top of my head who uses the kind of a hook loop style all the time. Rublev's very compact too, ultra compact. So you have like the ultra compact versus like the compact. Yeah, try one more. Try to go. So you go back and then boom. That's it. That's all here, and then the other one is more. That's your normal backhand. Yeah, I think he does more of the ATP. He may have had like a big loop before I met him, and we worked on shaving that loop down and getting more of ATP take back. We're still getting lag and everything, but you know, I would certainly not force a player to do the hook loop. Because it's hard to do. One more. You're missing the topspin. You got to let that racket head drop underneath for spin. You don't want to let the ball drop, you know. You definitely stirred the soup, man. You're stirring this, you're making the soup.
It's difficult.
Yeah, and then this has, so what I was talking about is the racket has to go down, and that's kind of how the racket flips down. And then it has to go down, and also as you're pulling through, the racket will lag. So there's like down and lag, and you have to have a loose structure here to make that happen. And you also you need good power from your hips and from your legs. Which one are you're gonna try to hook loop it? I don't think you can do it. Fine. You don't have to hit it too hard. You just need to spin the ball. Nice one. Okay, good job. I think you have kind of a hybrid, like a stir the soup and then a hook loop. All right. Okay, so major drill number 2 is the topspin drill, and you want to try to build ATP mechanics, and, ATP NextGen mechanics by working on topspin while working on topspin. The best way to work on topspin is with a high string. So I use the air zone here, but you can just set up your own if you'd like. 2 sticks and a rope does the job, a couple feet above the net, and the player has an instant target to work on spin. And then I like to come up close in the short court here. You can do this with the ball machine or with a partner, with a coach, someone to toss you balls, and you work on spinning the ball. So you work on keeping the same rhythm that we were working on in the back in the first exercise. You can do some dribbling, you can do some circling, you can stir the soup if you want. You got to get everything relaxed in these body segments here, wrists, elbows, even shoulders. It's not just the wrist. People say relax your wrist, but it's actually elbows have to be relaxed. Shoulders have to be relaxed. This whole chain here has to be relaxed to get that nice topspin and to get that whippiness in the racket that's going to give you the lag that we all want. Ready? So I'll give you kind of a easy ball here and just see if you can spin it. And it's going to be hard because look how high this thing is. I bring the players up close to the net here and I say, I want you to spin it. Sometimes I raise it up even higher. Say, I want you to spin the ball, and how about this? I want you to spin the ball and put it in the service box. I want you to get over this, but not deep. I don't want you to hit through the ball. This is a scraping drill. This is a grazing drill, you know? Can you get it up and over that yellow and then make it dive down in? And that's going to force the player to get whippy and to let their wrist move, to use their wrist appropriately, and to come up with the left, especially the left arm, that left arm rising up, that left wrist and forearm rising up and getting the rotation, that internal left shoulder rotation that's critical in the ATP backhand, the modern backhand. Remember, the traditional two-handed backhand is very tight and locked. You're not going to get that rotation happening in the left shoulder and that pronation that's happening in the left forearm. So you need that rotation and pronation to help generate the topspin. Can you get up and over? It's hard, right? It's a tricky task. And if you can teach kids to do this, if you can teach yourself to do this, if you can teach adults to do this, they will start to get the proper modern backhand mechanics. Some coaches talk about the left hand coming up higher than the right. Toglu talks about that. Other coaches on YouTube talk about that. I think it's actually correct and good. You want to think about as you're coming through, the left hand rising up to generate that topspin. And this wiper movement of the left hand, if the left hand is wipering, that is internal shoulder rotation, ISR of the left shoulder. And that's really important for topspin, getting those modern mechanics going. Good. Can you drop it in short? Okay. You got to use 2 hands. Yeah, not bad. That was pretty good. You got a lot of spin on that. I like what he did there. Got a lot of spin on that one. Okay. Okay. Here's another angle of that up close little dipping topspin drill. We're up close to the net and we're trying to get over that high string barrier. Micah's going to try to use his ISR, use his lag and whip and see if he can get the ball up and over. Okay, that was actually pretty good. You didn't get it down soon enough, but it was much better. You know, you have shape. One of the things you'll see is shape on the other side. Come on, more up, more up, more up. You're doing a great job with your backswings. One of the things you want to look at here is when you're doing this drill, you don't take a big bubble loop like a WTA backhand. You take either a hook loop style that we were talking about, or you stir the soup style, and you stick with that. You don't let the racket get sloppy and go past the midline, past the 6 p.m. That was really good. You got a lot of spin on that. That was awesome. I don't know if you saw that one. He got a lot of spin on that. He bent his knees well, got a lot of spin on that, and he flicked up the back of the ball, literally flicking up. And he got a lot of spin. The ball came down the other side. And if you learn those mechanics, you combine it with the backswing that we talked about in the first drill, you're 2/3 of the way. And I'm going to show you the last drill that I used to wrap it all up in a nice bow. So the third exercise I would encourage you to work on is the spacing, because the spacing is going to unlock the straight arm and the good extension. So you need to have like this ISR and this whippiness and this rotation happening to get that heavy spin. And then you also need like the length. Like you can't just spinny the ball, right? So you need the length too. So this is sort of a hybrid exercise where I work on the spacing, which is a Spanish thing, like the positioning, getting good spacing. And then a lot of times with players, I'll make sure they're getting good extension. Then that means the left arm is almost straight. Sometimes I call it straighter arm. It doesn't have to be locked, but straighter arm. The right arm's typically a little bent on the modern ATP backhand. And I make sure the impact is right there. And it's a good drill you can do with a ball machine, with a friend, with a coach, whatever. You can even toss it to yourself. You can, if you have nobody to help you, you can toss the balls to yourself, which I always recommend. All right, so Mike, you're not going to really hit this one normally. Come closer. You're just going to try to work on meeting the ball and getting a little extension. And you can just do it slowly. You don't have to follow through all the way, but you're going to meet the ball. Yeah, I wouldn't even go that much. I would just go, do your normal swing. You could have the player, or if you're working on this, you can work on your what? You're way too tight, dude. You can work on your little circle here. You can work on your hook loop. You can work on your stir the soup. And then as you come through, you want to make sure the impact, we're looking for this configuration at the impact. This relationship, so the player, this is measuring the distance. The player has to measure the distance. That's what I want. And then you just lift and extend. Lift and extend, lift and extend. You can even stop. You don't have to follow through. Sometimes it's helpful to stop and follow through. It's kind of a riff off an old Robert Lansdorp exercise, the great Robert Lansdorp, famous American technical coach. And he used to do a drill similar to this where the players would extend. I think he did it a lot stiffer than I would do it. So it's sort of like a relaxed Robert Lansdorp extension drill. You go, show me spacing, spacing, spacing. Where's the circle thingy? There's no circle. The wrist, dude, the wrist. Oh my God. Stop, your arms are locked. This is the problem. Players, you say to players, I want you to straighten your arms. And what's the first thing they do? They get tight, they get robotic. Look, this, stop, dude. You circle it, and then you come to the extension point. Oh my God. But this is the challenge. Like, this is a real tennis player. It's not just like a fake example that I'm giving. This is a real kid working on his ATP backhand, and this is something he struggles with. He gets tight when he needs to be fluid and relaxed as he's accelerating. But don't swing too hard and work on the space. Space, that was awesome, great. That was great. I think if we put it in slow-mo, I could put that in slow-mo for you guys. I think you'll see that he was right in the right area. He had a great relationship between the impact point and the ball, getting the arms straight, and then he did a good job lifting through there. Then, of course, you'll follow through after. But I recommend this exercise where you work on spacing, 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 impact, spacing, and you don't have to hit it. You don't have to hit it over the net even. Spacing, 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 impact. You can do partial swings where you just extend and then you can follow through after, or you can go just stopping, or you can try to put it all together, you know. So that's the extension part. The first exercise was about figuring out the backswing part and getting more relaxation through the joints, which is super hard. Like, that's so hard for everybody to learn. And then the other drill was for the spinny, learning how to get rotation in the shoulder, and thus particularly using the left side of the body good. And if you take these 3 exercises and you sort of work your magic and work through each one of them step by step, you can start to mold for yourself or for your students or for your players. You can start to mold an ATP or NextGen two-handed backhand. It's very difficult. That's why most people really struggle with it. All right, you want to do the contact point? It's coming. Yeah, that's good, but you're locked. Like, you're just doing it like robot style. Very nice. So that was very clean, good measurement at the impact and a nice lift. And then that part's a little firmer. I would kind of play with that and try to get whippiness and relaxation with that nice firm extension. As you get better, you'll decide, you'll know instinctively some shots you want to go a little longer and a little flatter and more powerful, and other shots you want to do like you were doing at the net, and you want to flick them and create more topspin, more flip in the racket. It's just going to depend on what you want to do. Like, some shots you might want to flip and roll them up high with topspin, and some shots you might be a little firmer through here and drive and extend. And all of those nuances, you don't just dictate that to the player. The player has to feel those situations and learn how to manipulate the racket and to manipulate the body segments depending on what they want to do tactically. Nice job. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on the modern ATP NextGen two-handed backhand, my favorite drills, lots of variations. I tried to share with you good techniques. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. Please consider subscribing to our channel. We're growing fast and we're trying to produce really good educational content in tennis. And please like and share the channel with your friends. I'll see you guys on the next program. If you like this video about the ATP backhand, I've got a great video that you'll love right here.